back on the marketing stage at this edition of Hot Takes Live. We are lucky enough to be joined by Eric Sue, CEO of Single Grain. He's got a super interesting topic for us today. Without further ado, Eric, please take it away.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gary. So I'm going to jump into it because we only got so little time. So today I'm going to talk about how to build a media company that drives ARR. And let's go ahead and jump into it. So first and foremost, name's Eric Sue. I have an ad agency called Single Grain, and I have a podcast called Marketing School, another one called Leveling Up, where we just nerd out on business and marketing. Combined, those get about $1.8 million a month. So feel free to listen. It's free. And the main thing I want to talk about today is how marketing is just getting harder, right? So it's there's really only one question you have to think about because of all the app tracking, transparency, all the changes that are happening right now. Marketing is just getting harder. Acquisition costs are rising, right? So the main question is, do people actually know you at the end of the day? And by the way, just because marketing is getting harder that's actually a good thing for people that are willing to accept the challenge, right? It means it's going to get harder and it's going to be much more of a blue ocean. It's not going to be as competitive as it was before because everyone's just raising a bunch of money, dumping it into ads and, setting it on autopilot. But those days are now going away. So I have a couple people here. I mean, one in the middle, that's my podcast co-host, Neil. We have Gary V. We got Alex Ramosi. We got Mr. Beast here. We got Cody Sanchez. And at the end of the day, what these people are all doing is they're putting a lot of money into their content teams. They're building their own brand because brand has equity for the long term. With brand, you're building long-term value. And a lot of companies, especially in B2B, aren't really thinking about this stuff, right? And that now needs to change. And I'm going to tell you how. So I'm going to tell you how we're doing it. I mean, we're practicing what we preach, even though we do a lot of marketing for a lot of SaaS companies out there. The type of marketing we're doing for them, we're trying to get them to expand their minds a little bit, right? So that's that. So first and foremost, I want to talk about our content assets. So what we have, because keep in mind, the ad agency is B2B. It's just a business model, right? We have podcast 1. That's Marketing School. We have podcast 2. That's Leveling Up. We have our blog, and that drives a good amount of leads per month as well. And then we have my YouTube channel. And then we also have the Marketing School YouTube channel, right? So that's where we're putting in most of our effort right now, in addition to using LinkedIn and channels like Twitter. And I'll come back to that in a second on those. In terms of our content process, I'm going to talk about our expenses. So when you think about, I've asked, when Cody spoke at my event, or, when Neil and I talk about this, we're basically spending anywhere from 40 grand a month, 30 to 40 grand a month on our content teams. And in some cases, some of these people like the Hermosis, they're spending, 150 grand plus, right? And then, Alex Hermosi and Layla Hermosi, they've really kind of, grown their brand in the last, let's call it 12 to 18 months or so. And they're getting a lot of reach where they would have paid, hundreds of thousands of dollars monthly to the ad platforms for kind of paying the fire hose. That would have just gone away if they stopped paying. Now they're creating, kind of recurring value with their brand, right? And that brand, in return helps them with the private equity company. Same thing with Cody, or in the case of Neil and I, we just drive a lot of leads to our respective ad agencies, right? And Mr. Beast, he's built his platform, and what he's doing now is he's building the chocolates, right? He's doing Feastables, he's doing the burgers and all that type of stuff. So attention is the name of the game, and that is, people say attention is a new oil. That was coined in like 2015, 2014 or so. That's becoming much more of a thing. So how can you hold someone's attention given all the strong organic reach that's coming from these channels? And you might say, oh, this doesn't apply to my B2B company, but I can tell you, there are people that have built, $20 million plus companies just off the back of LinkedIn, right? So it is very possible. And I'm going to show you how in a little bit as well. So again, even though we're spending 30 to 40 grand a month on, our kind of content assets or our content production, you don't necessarily need to do that. You can maybe start out with, two to 5 grand a month, right? I know 30 to 40 grand is a bit to stomach. But, you can get started by using, people look down on Upwork, but there's actually a lot of great providers on Upwork, right? There's a lot of great people out there that will create shorts for you. They'll help you write LinkedIn native content, Twitter native content, and maybe you spend, a little bit of money. We're using some great editors right now, kind of offshore in the Philippines, and we're paying them, $10 to $15 an hour, which is a great salary for them, based on where they live. And for you, if you hire a couple of those, you're able to output a ton of content out there, right? And so, taking advantage of shorts, taking advantage of, so YouTube shorts, there's TikToks, there's reels, right? And don't say it doesn't work. Like attention is just attention at the end of the day, right? So we're seeing it work really well, for acquisition, in addition to what we've already been doing that's been tried and true over the last decade or so. So that's that. And I do want to talk about the monthly organic reach that we're getting. So again, I'm speaking fast because we're on limited time here. So marketing school, this picture, we're basically now about 76 million downloads or so. This one's 74 million on the screenshot. And this podcast is continuing to grow. And if you think about it, when you do a podcast or when you're doing a long form YouTube video, people get to watch, whoever it is that's creating the content, and they're building, an affinity for that person, right? You start to know that person. You start to know how they think. You start to hear their voice all the time. Some of you might listen to marketing school, like you might hear my voice all the time. And then eventually, like, people like to do business with people, right? So, you start to know, like, and trust them. And that goes a lot further than just saying, let's run a bunch of, Google ads, let's run a bunch of, Meta ads and things like that. Don't get me wrong. We do that for a client all day, but it's just like, we're trying to get them to think differently about this stuff. And we're hopefully you'll think a little differently after watching this talk. So the reason why we love doing podcasting, and, there's a lot of B2B companies that now do podcasting, right, is the retention is a lot higher than any other platform that I've seen. So you can see in this scenario, like, on average for us, for the marketing school podcast, our retention is about 88%. So if an episode's 5 minutes or so, they're listening to the vast majority of that, right? Whereas on YouTube, Mr. Beast always like to say, for those of you that don't follow him, he's like the biggest YouTuber now, or one of the biggest. If you can get 60% retention on a YouTube video, you're in a good spot, right? So in this case, I'm getting 88%. And even for my long form stuff, I'm getting, averaging 70-75%. The higher you have your retention, the better it is, because again, you're going to build that brand affinity for the long term, right? And this stuff, you're not going to get it maybe in the first year. It's going to take you 3+ years to get this going. But once you get it going, it's a flywheel, and it's going to decrease all your acquisition costs, and increase your ARR across the board. So that's that. I'm going to run through a couple of screenshots here. I mean, this is just, one tweet that I threw out there, and I'm not like a god at Twitter, but one tweet can get 163,000 impressions, right? How much will that cost if you're spending on Twitter? And then over here, this is just a screenshot of YouTube over like, a certain period of time, 1.2 million views. You look at the watch time, right? We're building affinity again. You look at LinkedIn, over a certain period of time, 6.5 million impressions. And that's me not even putting my whole back into LinkedIn, right? And so again, there are people that are posting every single day to LinkedIn. They're getting hundreds of thousands of impressions, and people are building, $3 million a year profit businesses that are one-person businesses, right? So you can certainly do that, but you can do that for your business, because your business is actually a monetization engine that can maybe make even more money than a 3 million in profit. Or you can just say, hey, maybe you're working somewhere right now and you want to build that for yourself. You can certainly do this. This is all available to every single one of us. So again, you don't need to be a prolific creator to do this. I'm mostly focused on the podcasting aspect, and then we kind of try to sprout all the content outwards, which I'm going to talk about right now. And I'll try to wrap up. Anyway, I know we've got 6 minutes left, so I'll go fast. So this is our framework over here. And this is known as the content sprouting framework. So what this means is, we start out with a video. So this is a video itself, right? Then I might make this presentation 15 minutes or so. I might convert it into, 3 forms of audio, right? I might toss it onto the Leveling Up, podcast, right? And then I might repurpose this podcast. We might use ChatGPT and then, run it through a duplicate content checker, and then have an editor. And then we can just create like a ton of content based on all my little 5-minute snippets every day that come from marketing school, right? So there's a lot of different ways to take one piece of content and maybe make it into 100 pieces of content. And I'd encourage you a lot to think about that. Okay. Before I continue, you can take out your phone. You can actually scan this QR code. We actually have a newsletter with 30,000 other marketers called the Growth Marketing Weekly. We don't charge anything for it. I just try to share as much as we can from all the different places that we're creating, podcast content. So you can scan the QR code for that. And then I am going to move on from the Growth Marketing Weekly stuff. So let's talk about what works, and then I'm going to cut the slides short because there's no way I'm going to be able to run through everything. But what works is engagement pods. So this is like against the terms of service for, channels like LinkedIn. But I've joined pods in the past where like all the top creators of LinkedIn, people that are getting, millions of followers, they're all using engagement pods. And what an engagement pod actually is it's like a, like a WhatsApp group where people just kind of post, the latest piece that they related for the day, and then everyone goes there and they engage with it, right? And everyone kind of that's how everyone kind of gives to each other. And so that's been effective. People say it's not effective. It still works. It's tried and true. And so you just have to figure out, if you can get a group of people together that are like-minded, that want to grow their LinkedIn's, you can certainly do that. Platforms that have strong organic reach as of right now. Twitter is good. If you can get good at Twitter, that's great. LinkedIn is very strong right now because LinkedIn only has 2% of its users actually posting content, so they want more of that. TikTok is obviously good right now. YouTube Shorts is good. I would say those are the best ones. And then if you have the resources later, you can talk about going and buying other websites that have strong SEO, strong domain authority. But that I'll save that for another talk another time. And underutilized growth secrets. But this I'll leave it on this final piece, and I'll open up for some Q&A. Is impression trades, right? So we're missing the S over here, but impression trades, I'll give you an example of this, is on the Marketing School podcast. We actually worked out a deal with another podcaster that gets about 6 million downloads a month, the Jordan Harbinger Show. And I just reached out to Jordan. He's a friend. I said, hey, why don't we figure out how we can help grow each other? And we basically agreed to do a 500,000 impression trade, which means, we talk about his podcast for 500,000 impressions. He talks about ours for 500,000 impressions. That gave us like a 5 to 10% lift. And so, think about how you can do this for emails. Think about how you can do this for your email list, your YouTube channel, your podcast, whatever it is that you have. Think about what you can trade to grow your audiences, and that's going to help you grow a lot faster. Talking about that, and live events, I'll leave this for later. I'm in Miami right now, which is why I'm not home. But I just did my live event, and I love doing live events, and that's very much an acquisition channel as well. What you're seeing with this whole hot takes thing, and eventually like a live hot takes, is that what the team's doing over there is they're making use of live and virtual events. So I am going to pause and open up for Q&A because I know we have 3 minutes left. So I am going to stop sharing. Gary, you're muted.
Sorry, I got too excited because I really enjoyed that presentation. You packed a ton of value into a really short amount of time. I think a couple of things that would be helpful for the audience. So totally buy into everything you're saying. I think one of the challenges is traditional marketers, just traditional business leaders in B2B companies shifting to this media company mindset, right? Shifting to this media company mindset. Thinking about it from an editorial or like production perspective. How do you help people? Like, what are good ways for people to get into that mindset? Is there like content out there that's helpful to them? Is there frameworks out there that are helpful for them?
Yeah, I would say, for me, I started getting into it. I mean, if you see how Cody does it, or you see how Alex Hormozy does it, they're just prolific content creators, and they're just like give, right? So it's the whole like Gary V jab, 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 right hook type of thing. So I would say if you just watch how people are doing it, and you're going to see more B2B companies do it. I'm a big fan of kind of just watching and then imitating.
Okay, cool. And so like our previous speaker Nishal was also talking about brand and the power of brand, and one of the questions to him was about, hey, like the traditional science, hard metrics driven people are focused on things that seem to be easily testable, easily validated, easily like measured. Some of this stuff I think is probably like longer tail investments. It takes time to see the benefits of it. How do you overcome those objections from like business leaders that are saying, whoa, like I'm not prepared to invest in a podcast for 6 months before we know it works, that type of thing?
Yeah, so I think you're seeing a lot of people talking about dark social now, right? And how you can't measure everything. And like, 10 years ago, it's like, oh, we can measure stuff. Let's try to measure everything. And then the pendulum's kind of swung back to you can't try to measure everything. And so I think that's more of a education piece for the higher level executives saying, hey, like some things you can try to measure, but some things you can't. Because if you try to measure everything, you're going to end up constraining yourself to a few key channels. Or a few channels, whereas everyone else is just kind of running circles around you because they're not trying to measure every single little thing.
Awesome. Eric, we've put up your LinkedIn. If people want to get in touch with you, if people want to learn more about how to work with Single Grain, what are their options?
Yeah, they can go to singlegrain.com or just follow me on Instagram or Twitter at Eric O.S. as in sugar, I-U.
Awesome. Eric, thank you so much. It's only possible with great speakers like you. That was a super exciting topic. For everyone watching, we're going to be back in 5 minutes with another topic. Please stay tuned. Thank you for joining us so far. Thanks, Eric.
Bye.